The world of digital marketing moves at a dizzying speed. Strategies, budgets, tactics, buzzwords. How can we even begin to distinguish the signal from the noise, the good moves from the bad? Take it from the team that's tripped as much as we've triumphed. We're putting our best moves in the spotlight and spilling every secret to give you step-by-step instructions to steal for your own success and digitally scale your business. This is Marketing Moves.
Welcome back to another episode of Marketing Moves. I'm your host, Ashtyn Morris, Senior Account Executive and Strategic Partnerships Lead at Vivid Front. Today, I am joined by John Paganini. He has spent over 40 years navigating startups, healthcare, informatics, and the rapidly shifting world of artificial intelligence. John is the president of Paguar Informatics, a firm dedicated to helping organizations formulate real, actionable AI strategy. He's also the co-chair of the Northern Ohio HIMSS AI Center of Excellence, where he's helping lead the conversation around AI governance, strategy, and healthcare literacy. John, welcome to Marketing Moves.
Hi, Ashtyn.
I'm so glad you are here today. You have such an extensive career, and I'm really excited to get into it. But before we dig into all of the work that you've done, your role with AI, I want to give our listeners a proper introduction. You've spent over 40 years building tech and
Decades,
startups.
Yes. Seems like a long time, for sure.
It's amazing. Here in Northeast Ohio. How has the regional tech identity evolved since you first started, and what has kept you so passionate about operating here?
In the city of Cleveland? Well,
Yeah.
Cleveland's a fantastic city, as you well know. There's so much going on. And Cleveland is a city where you can kind of get a handle on the people, the culture, the businesses, and what's going on in the city. So from a technical perspective, there's been an evolution, of course, over the decades. In fact, I took one of those computer courses back decades ago where a phone call changes your life, and all of a sudden you have a little certificate saying you understand computers. And then fast forward till today, how that has changed. In the past, technology was not the main focus as it is in a lot of the organizations today. Maybe the C-suite didn't have the CIO sitting at the table with the rest of the executives making important decisions about the importance of information technology. That has definitely changed. And of course, we're going to be talking a little bit about AI. AI is the major transformer of everything. So we've now progressed to the place where we've got a lot of information now in electronic format. All that data is now collected, and we can take the AI and really make sense out of that and do some great statistical analysis. So to your question, how have things changed? They've progressed naturally in a sense. And here we are today with this great transformer called AI that is changing how business is being done today.
Could you have ever imagined where we are at today?
That's hard to say. My background, 20 years ago, we were taking images, radiology images, and we were training the machine learning model on capturing and discovering and learning where mammography had cancerous or benign things on the images. And so we were training the computers how to look at images 20 years ago. And so that kind of set the stage in a way for the evolution of technology, that it's continuing to get smarter and smarter as we teach it more and more about what's going on. But the answer, probably not. It's really hard to envision. In fact, I teach a class, and trying to envision 5 years into the future, much less 10 with AI, is pretty challenging.
I can't even envision a year from now.
Yeah, no, it is changing that fast.
Yeah.
In fact, I taught the class 2 months ago, and I've updated it already.
What made you want to get out of the corporate tech world and do something different and build Paguar Informatics back in 2000?
Paguar Informatics started as a systems integration organization working for organizations like the Cleveland Clinic. And it was all about making sure the systems talk to each other. And that situation or challenge and opportunity still exists today, where all these systems have to connect and integrate, and all the data has to be rolled up and analyzed so that you can make better clinical decisions. And of course, that has to be done elegantly and gracefully, in the sense that we don't want clinicians having to log into 7 different systems just to get an answer. So we've got to integrate those smoothly, nicely, and make sure that the workflow is seamless in many ways and it's not counterproductive. The object of that game is to take all that data and then enable the physicians to make a great decision about what's going on with that particular patient in the healthcare space. And so one of the areas that is really interesting in healthcare right now is this ambient AI. And this is when, and you may have experienced this yourself, Ashtyn, you go to the doctor's office and they say, do you mind if I record? And they record that data, and that information is then being transcribed, and the data is actually being placed in the right places in the electronic medical record. So that makes for a more robust experience for you as the patient with the doctor, because they're looking eye to eye like we are now and having a great conversation. So also, the doctors are now saying that they can go home at 5 o'clock and have a normal life with balance. And there's been statements where they say, oh, I really like going to work now because I don't have to sit in front of the computer and type up all my notes all the time. So their life got a little bit better in some ways.
I can imagine, obviously, that evolved as the technology evolved.
Yes.
So how has your company evolved since 2002? How did you start, and really where are you at today?
Yeah, sure. I did have a small startup that was called Medimate. It was one of the first patient electronic medical records back in the mid-90s. And then an opportunity came to develop a radiology information system. And I kind of used some of that same technology and approach to managing a radiology office. And that company actually winded up getting bought by a company called Merge Healthcare, which eventually got bought by IBM. So that was pretty successful. And then after that, I decided to start my own company and consult. And then I went to the Cleveland Clinic and did a lot of systems integrations projects there. So the company has evolved over time as the technology is moving. Then I moved with it. And the past couple of years, obviously, there's been an AI incorporation into the overall business model. But the aspect of the company that is key and essential, I say it's human-centered, AI-driven, and that means you look at the business problem first. What are the inefficiencies in your operations? What's the workflow look like? And then you say, what technology makes sense for that? And it could be AI, and it often is, it can be. But make sure you just look at the business problem first. Because if you have a workflow, you want to make sure that workflow is working well initially. And if it's not working well, you can't just throw technology at that workflow and fix it, because it's just fixing a problem that will stay there just with some enhanced AI. So the object there would be either you take that workflow and you redesign it completely and then bring AI into it or whatever technology makes sense there, or you fix that workflow because it's close but it's not perfect, and then you see what technology can enhance that. But the original question is, Paguar Informatics has just progressed over the years as the technology changes, but essentially it's a consulting organization.
How do you ensure that all of the patient's health data is secure? Because I can imagine you're having a conversation with your doctor, it's probably pretty personal, and then you feel like, oh my gosh, AI is transcribing this. How do you ensure that information is only between doctor, AI, and patient, and it isn't out in the ecosystem?
Yep, and all the healthcare systems have a big security department. So they have a department dedicated just to securing the information and protecting it from hackers coming in. So that's a big part of the whole enterprise is very essential, especially for healthcare information. There's nothing probably more valuable on the market than healthcare information itself. So how is that protected? The systems are in place. In fact, they're using AI to help defend the hackers from coming in as well. And so that is just an area of the healthcare enterprise that is very important, and there's a lot of conferences on that. We talk about that in our organization, the healthcare organizations, a lot, and protect it. But that data, once it's in the system, is protected, whether it comes from the ambient AI, you talking to the doctor and then recording it, or they're typing it in. It's the same level of protection. It's electronic.
So who is your target consumer then? Who are you trying to reach with your marketing efforts to adopt or become a customer? Yeah,
that's a good question. So there is some consulting that I do outside of healthcare as well. And one client has a tool that actually you can say, show me all the managers or in this space that are working on this area, like HVAC or directors in Columbus maybe, and that data can be then exported out of that and seamlessly brought into another tool, a CRM. So there's a lot of AI that can assist in some of the tools, and all the vendors today probably have some aspect of AI in their product because they have to. And whatever level of AI it is different based on the tool itself. But there's a lot of tools out there, and there's a lot of systems integration opportunities. Another organization, they wanted to update all of their photos. They had 14,000 photos of products. So maybe they wanted to have photos in different scenarios in the scenario, like a schoolroom or a factory floor, and those photos would reflect it to give the users, when they were purchasing the products, a better understanding of that. And so there's different models for marketing that can be used when it comes to AI. So the challenge for me is to keep up with all the tools that are emerging all the time and understanding that. Some have been around for a long time, like tools like QuickBooks and HubSpot and all those. So those common tools that organizations are using, the integrations are usually out there already to help them be more efficient and effective.
It's very refreshing to hear you say that even you, someone who's very tech native, AI native, sometimes struggles to keep up with all of it. I think that's a feeling many of us feel. So do you have any tips for people that maybe want to start becoming more comfortable with AI tools? What's the best way to start adopting them?
Oh, that's a good question. Absolutely, you should just start using it. Just find one of the ones that are common, and there's many out there. Of course, Google has Gemini, Claude has theirs, OpenAI has ChatGPT, Perplexity, Microsoft Copilot. So you may, in your organization, already have access to that. And if you don't, and your organization is still thinking about how do I incorporate or how do I implement or where do I start with AI, then, and I would say that maybe in your personal time, you start using it and getting used to what AI can do for you. And there's so many different scenarios. So first thing is, it's not too late. It's okay to get started now. We're still kind of early in the AI explosion, if you will. But the time is now. And I do believe that people who don't know AI, who are in business, may be challenged in a way against people who do have AI knowledge and are using it to make them more efficient in their everyday workflow. There's a lot of talk about how a company of 10 can do the work of 100 now, thanks to AI and those efficiencies. And so organizational structures are going to change dramatically. And I also believe that the AI levels the playing field in some ways for the smaller companies who are trying to do against the bigger companies that are out there. So the bigger companies they have a bigger wheel to turn when it comes to AI. And so maybe some of these smaller companies have an opportunity to play in that space.
Absolutely.
So I would get started immediately. That would be my first recommendation. And from there, you can take classes and start learning. And I would say that also that the jobs out there today it's augmenting. AI augments the job. It doesn't necessarily have to replace. There are jobs that are probably going to be replaced eventually because AI is going to do it. But in your own job today, if you learn AI, augment your skills with AI, with an ownership and direction and governance, if you will, by the company itself, because in a healthcare institution, you don't want to bring in AI on your phone and use that to do business with. And then, so you have to be conscious of the governance and the policies of the organization as well.
Yeah, I feel like there's clear guardrails that need to be set based off of the organization, especially when it comes to the sensitive material or data itself. You are the co-chair of the Northern Ohio HIMSS AI Center of Excellence. Before I get into some questions about that, can you give us an overview of what this organization is and really your role in it?
Sure. HIMSS is a global organization. I think it's about 160,000 members. And their mantra, if you will, is better healthcare using information and technology. And I've been a member of it for probably about 20 years, and I'm on the local board, the Northern Ohio HIMSS board. HIMSS stands for Health Information Management System Society.
I can see why they simplified that.
Yes, for HIMSS, for sure. And a couple of years ago, there was a conference, and all of our major hospitals were talking about the innovation they were doing in AI. And it was just phenomenal what's going on in AI. The interesting thing about that is each of them was doing something similar but different in their own space. And I stood up and I said, what if we were to create an AI Center of Excellence and all work together and collaborate towards better patient outcomes, operational efficiencies, and establish Northern Ohio as a leader in healthcare AI? And that got a good response. And so the next day, the board said, good job, John. Go do it. And so there was somebody on the board with me, Jennifer Owens, who volunteered to assist. And together in the past 2 years, her name's Jennifer Owens, we've been heading up the AI Center of Excellence. So we're focused on a couple key areas. One is advocacy, what's going on at the local level, the state level, the federal level, even internationally, as far as regulations around AI, especially as it applies to healthcare. And one of the examples is there's a Senate bill going out right now that it will ensure that a human is in the loop when making decisions about insurance claims, because a lot of that AI is automatically denying it, and we're making sure that humans are watching to make sure that the biases or whatever's happening are being watched by a human being. So there's some great regulations coming out. We're also working on AI health literacy, and we were fortunate enough to get a grant by the Cleveland Foundation, and we're going to be educating the underserved on AI health literacy and helping them get access to their healthcare records, teaching them how to use AI to manage their health, but also how AI is being used to manage their health as well. So we're really excited about that initiative, and that's in a partnership with the WellLink. We're also working on a data management, a sandbox for us to experiment and test in a safe environment our AI innovations. And the last and most maybe very important aspect of our committees is a governance framework, which determines what are the policies, what are the procedures, what is the technologies, and how do we make sure that the data is both has accuracy and fidelity and integrity when it's being trained and there's no biases, and how do we ensure that AI is being deployed correctly and properly within the organization and has gone through the proper testing and pilot phases. So that is pretty exciting. And tomorrow I'm going to be introducing another committee which is going to be keeping the human in the loop at all times for our AI Center of Excellence, which I'm pretty excited about that as well.
Wow, when do you sleep? Got a lot going on. Why are you so passionate about healthcare in particular? I'm curious. Do you have any personal ties to it, or was it more so a byproduct of you felt like there was a lot of innovation within this space?
Yeah, that's funny. And a lot of people who get into healthcare do it because something has happened in their family or something, and they become advocates and ambassadors to do that. That hasn't been the case. I think for me, just personally, I become passionate about something I believe in and is important. And there's so many things, as you can imagine. As I mentioned, making Cleveland a recognized leader in healthcare AI as an example, better patient outcomes, making the hospitals run more efficiently. That is easy for me to get passionate about in a sense, and that really drives me. But mostly, it's the people that are driving me, because right now we have a committee of 150 people of different organizations, legal firms, colleges, universities, healthcare enterprises, vendors, and the energy around each of the individual committees, much less synergistically and collectively overall as a committee, is just astounding, actually. Mm-hmm. And that is in itself so motivating to move the initiative forward.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you've already touched on this, but AI is becoming more widely adopted between clinicians and nurses at work.
Yes.
A 2026 survey by Walter Kluwer shows that clinical AI adoption has surged, with nearly 74% of doctors and 70% of nurses now using AI weekly at work.
Yes.
But 74% of clinicians are deeply worried about de-skilling or losing their critical thinking and decision-making skills.
Yeah, great research.
What do you think about that? Are you surprised by this? And what would you counter some of those arguments with?
Yes, and the word de-skilling is interesting because people worry about that. Oh my gosh, I don't have to think anymore because I can just ask ChatGPT or something, a question, it'll give me the answer, and I can move on from there. But for me, I believe it really enables us to think about the more creative, the more deeper thinking that we have to do, and we let the AI do some of the rote, routine, simpler tasks. And then we can focus on the exciting stuff, the stuff we really are interesting to us or we're good at or we want to be better at. And so I don't see it as a de-skilling at all. I see it as maybe reskilling in a sense, because you're now free to roam about the country where you couldn't before because you had to do a lot of administrative stuff. In fact, in some of those tasks, if you're looking at a nurse's workflow, you might say, where do you spend more than 20% of your time not doing clinical work specifically to the patient? And maybe that's one of the first areas you look at when you say, oh, I wonder if AI can help us over here because you're doing 10% of your workflow is this, and that really is not directly related to the patient's care and making sure that they're being tended to. I don't see it as de-skilling as much, but it requires another mindset in a sense. And maybe there's an initial awareness that everybody goes through when they use AI, that once they get through that, they say, oh, this empowers me. This is augmenting my skills. I can be better at what I want to do thanks to AI. But it has to be a conscious awareness of that.
Has this come up in conversations you've had with clinicians? Or I know obviously this was a survey, so it applies to a certain set of people, but I'm curious if it has come up in your own day-to-day.
Not directly, but working with clinicians over the years with things similar to AI like CAD, there is a sense of you don't want to completely trust the AI to make a decision, which is why we talked about human in a loop. So let's say you're a radiologist, you're looking at an image, and the AI said, this is the problem, just click the button and say, I accept that diagnosis. You can't do that. You can say, thank you, AI. I appreciate you alerting to me this. And by the way, AI, how did you come to that conclusion? So the AI should be telling you, I saw this, look deeper, and you take it from here. So the doctor really should have the AI tell it how it came to that conclusion. You don't want the AI being a black box. It has to be transparent on how it's getting there. And they have these things called model cards, which tells you what the AI is doing, what's the accuracy level, what are the results, and what was the model trained on, what kind of data. So there's all these factors. But in the end, the doctor is responsible. And as humans and everything that we're doing, you can't blame it on the computer. If you see something in there and then you say it out loud, you're responsible for it.
Yeah.
The human being is responsible, but you have to do your homework and verify that the information being generated by the AI is in fact and has integrity and fidelity.
It's the same concept of when we were in grade school and our math teacher was like, show your work, and it felt stupid because it's like, I got the answer. Why do you need to see it? But you need to see how you got there.
Sure. It's like the journey, not the destination, right?
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by TRGT. The people listening to this show are executives, operators, and strategists. And if you're anything like us, operating at 100% isn't optional. It's the baseline. So here's the problem. Most of what we reach for to stay focused leaves us jittery or crashing. Coffees, energy drinks, other vices. TRGT is tackling this head-on with a supplement line purpose-built for long meetings, travel days, and back-to-back strategy sessions. If you've ever used or heard of Zins, those little pouches that took the nicotine industry by storm, TRGT's focus pouches use the same convenient delivery method, without all the junk. They load up their pouches with functional ingredients designed to support clean focus and sustained energy, so that you can lock in without the crash out. And the focus pouch is just the start. TRGT has a full system including hydration, recovery, and sleep formulas, so that you can maximize your entire day, not just your work day. Our team is hooked, and we think you will be too. If you want to perform smarter, head to taketrgt.com.
So obviously you operate in high compliance fields where trust is everything. I think trust is everything everywhere, but especially when it comes to healthcare. A June 2026 report shows that patient reliance on AI to choose doctors has more than doubled in 9 months, from 17% to 36%. Yet, overall consumer comfort with brands using AI has dropped to just 46%. Does this surprise you at all, these differing numbers? I know it's one of these cases where I feel like we're almost in an AI surge, but also people are distrusting it more than ever.
Yeah, And certainly recently we saw that at the college graduation ceremonies.
Yeah.
So the students are worried. And we're in a really interesting place right now where people are wisely so questioning the value of AI. I can see that. I can understand that. And we should be cautious about AI and how we're using it. Certainly a tool like this could be used in many different ways. So my focus is obviously an optimistic one. There is good in that. We have to make sure that we're doing it and implementing correctly with the trust. And I mentioned from a healthcare perspective those model cards. So if you've done your proper piloting, and let's take a pilot as an example. If you're piloting something, and this is generic and could be marketing as well, you would want to pilot it in a very safe place where no one gets hurt and you're doing it without any external impact to your normal productions. And then once you feel good about that and you've gotten the feedback and you've tuned it up and you watched out and make sure there's no biases present in the data or it's pretty reliable in the output it's giving generally, then maybe you extend it to a small group. And then that phase may last as long as it is, depending on how big or small the implementation of the AI is. And then you take it and you move it into production. And then you watch it. You watch it and you monitor it. And what happens with data is that data can drift a little bit. And over time, that data may not make sense anymore. So let's say in a healthcare institution, you train the model before COVID. And all of that data didn't have COVID knowledge in a sense, and all of a sudden COVID hits and you're still using the same AI, but now it's off a little bit because it hasn't been trained with the right data or the most recent data. So then either that data gets recalibrated or it gets completely retrained from scratch and we start fresh with a new model. So that happens where the models actually just come out of production because they're not accurate anymore.
So how do you train a model to get the outputs that are most helpful to you? I'm not saying the model needs to speak maybe kindly to you or hype you up, but how do you train the models to give you better outputs?
Sure. Let's think about the chat GPTs first, and then we'll bring it down. So if we think about all the big large language models that are out there, they've all been trained on, I like to think of it as everything in the universe. They've been trained on the internet, they've been trained on books, they've been trained on pictures, everything you can imagine. And what's the danger of that? So when you ask a question of the AI, it will try to guess basically the next word in that sequence that makes sense. But it's pretty smart. So the words that it's coming up with to make a logical sentence, paragraph, business plan, whatever it is you're doing with it, are probably pretty good, but you have to watch it because it's guessing. It is not going from true facts. It's basing its results and output on what it has in its information database, and it thinks that this is the next thing that should be right in that sentence, logically. But it doesn't mean it's a fact. It doesn't mean it's truth. So we have to be aware of that. And that's why when you're using AI, you should just make sure if it's leaving your space, then you are responsible when you're sharing it to make sure that you validated what you're sending out and sharing is accurate and valid, especially when it comes to things like even spreadsheets.
Yeah.
What if it put a wrong number in there? My gosh.
Change the whole thing.
It can. The way you train a model is to isolate the data on exactly what you know is verified truth. So they have small language models. So let's say it's cancer or diabetes. I'm just doing healthcare as an example. Or if it's a manufacturing institution and they want to train the model on just the machine and the statistics so that you can do predictive analysis and predictive maintenance when something's going to break on the sensors. All it knows is that machine, and it doesn't have to think about the rest of the world. It's not important. So when your models are very focused, that's when you can get accuracy and you can trust that the output is what it should be.
People are using AI more than ever now, which isn't inherently a bad thing, but a lot of the output ends up sounding the same.
Yeah.
So how do healthcare brands help differentiate themselves in the marketplace in using AI in a way to help them be more efficient without watering down the message?
Yeah, that's good. And I mentioned this earlier, and we'll take it to the next level. AI health literacy is essential, and that is not only do all the people in the healthcare enterprise have to realize how the AI is being used and why and where, and optimizing the smart use of AI in a sense, but the patients coming in now have to be educated as well. And I think what we're seeing now, Ashtyn, is patients are asking AI, and I talk about smart ways to do that as far as using AI to help you with your health, because we just have to be conscious of putting our healthcare information into the cloud. And there's a lot to talk about on that. However, let's say you're a patient and you've asked your AI lots of things, and you're now walking into the doctor's office armed and dangerous with a lot of information about what AI has said. Whether it's right or wrong, it's still interesting information. And maybe it's caused an alarm, or it sounds very hopeful that everything's okay. Whatever it is, there's a new dynamic between the patient and the clinician that didn't exist before, because the patients are now walking in with some really interesting information, which they're then going to have a conversation with the clinician about. And I think from a branding perspective, if I had a hospital, I would work on allowing that and almost promoting it to a degree where the conversation, the patients and the doctors now are changing in that respect. And then the doctor might say, oh, this is interesting. Let's take a look at that. This is good. This right here, this doesn't make sense. I'll tell you why, because I know from your medical record that this is happening. And what AI doesn't have is the nuances of your history. It doesn't know, and the doctor knows that. If it's your primary care physician, they've been working with you for years and years, and they know all about you in that sense, and the AI doesn't. So that's why the human always has to be the main driver of clinical decisions.
I completely agree. I think it's interesting. We're more equipped than ever with information, but there's always that joke of like, don't WebMD it, because you could go on a spiral. Ultimately, you need to trust your doctor.
Yes.
It's great that you are empowered to research and look into things yourself, but ultimately it's spitting out relatively generic information that's not tailored to you.
Yes.
So that's why you got to go to your doctor.
Exactly. It's going to keep it at a high level. And then one of the things, of course, is good prompting. Methodologies, using good prompting in your usage of AI is very important, because if you say, give me a recipe about chicken, then it's going to be all over the place. But if you say, listen, I have special diets, I only have 1 hour, here is my restrictions, give me something with chicken in it. And it narrows it down all of a sudden to something that makes a little bit more sense for you personally, as opposed to going out to every recipe about chicken, right?
Ask better questions, get better answers.
Yes, exactly.
I know we've jumped around a little bit, but you have a very strong personal brand within AI, healthcare. We met, I think, a month and a half or so ago at a GCP event where you were a speaker. So I'm curious, how have you gone about building your own personal brand? Is it through events, through LinkedIn?
The answer is yes to that. And it's funny because when I do post in LinkedIn, but I hope that it's interesting to that community, that followers or people that you're connected to. So LinkedIn has certainly been helpful in branding, rebranding, introducing the fact that I'm doing AI consulting and AI training. And so that has helped. Certainly the GCP is a great convener and collaborator of people in the community here. They're just so good at that. And so that has helped. There's been, I guess, a healthcare awareness. I've been on the stage in healthcare events a lot, and actually this year I was recognized as the 2026 Changemaker Award for Patient Innovation, which was really exciting. So that was at almost a global level. It's doing that, things like that have helped the branding.
Have you seen the return on investing in your personal branding?
Yes, I think so. It's hard to physically measure the ROI on that, but it hasn't hurt. Yeah, I can say that, yeah.
You also host a podcast, AI After 50. Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, since I am over 50, we started talking just generically, in a sense, just general friendly advice to people. And then we decided to kind of focus it a little bit more on people who are still in business that are over 50, who are thinking about or know they should be using AI if they want to hang out for the next 15 years or so. And so we focused it on the business side of over 50.
How often are you recording?
Not enough, every couple of weeks.
I'm curious, has that been an effective marketing tool for yourself, having a podcast?
I think maybe just mentioning it in conversation has maybe more value than probably the amount of listeners we don't have.
That's okay. We can talk off camera about how we've really maximized our show because there's a lot. It's a great content engine. But I do want to wrap up with digging into your larger vision for AI. Clearly, your work is driven by a broader vision for how technology and humanity should coexist. If we look 10 years out, which I know might be hard,
very hard,
where does Paguar Informatics fit in the infrastructure of how healthcare organizations grow? And how do we ensure the industry doesn't lose the human touch?
That last part, I'll just start with the last part. One of the things that I'm announcing tomorrow is that human in the loop. So if we mentioned governance framework, advocacy, data management, literacy, all of those pillars, if you will, of the Center of Excellence are now going to be bound together even more so by ensuring that the human in the loop is always touching all of those areas of AI. It seems funny thinking about how important the human being has become in our conversations because it just seems so obvious, of course. But now that AI has become so dominant, we're now going, we have to make sure the human is present as well, which didn't seem like it had to be a thing ever before until now. But I do think the impact of AI is absolutely transforming the world. And one of the areas that I think is very important is digital equity. That is, all people on the planet need to be engaged and connected. And there's a lot of initiatives right here in Cleveland with organizations like Digital C, the Cleveland Foundation. They're all working towards ensuring that the entire community is connected. And then our piece is going to be helping them understand how to get access to their healthcare information. In fact, I just am now part of the Lake County Free Clinic Board, which is really exciting for me personally, and giving back to the community in ways that I wasn't able to do before. But it's really hard to predict where AI is going to be 10 years from now. But we will be changed, I think, as a society dramatically because of the inclusion of AI in our everyday life. We're already been using AI when things like Netflix, which is telling us which movie, to Amazon telling us which product we probably want to buy. All that AI is just becoming more and more prevalent and the whole personalization of it. But I do think we need to get away from the personalization in the sense that we need to be more team-focused, more people-focused, more group-focused, and not let AI totally personalize us without thinking about the greater good and the greater community.
It's interesting. It's been omnipresent, and we didn't even realize it.
Yes, the whole time, yeah. That's by design, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you ready to be in the hot seat?
Yes.
Okay, great. I always like to give people a chance if they don't want to. No kidding.
Okay.
Describe the future of AI in Cleveland in just one word.
I would have to say leadership. Leadership kind of jumps out. It's going to require organizations, nonprofits, business, manufacturing, fintech, healthcare, to drive the adoption of AI at the highest levels and become part of the culture. Now, how that is done is a whole different story, but I think our leadership at all the levels within Cleveland, including the city and the county, which they are very much behind it. In fact, we have some city personnel on the Center of Excellence, too, which is quite exciting to have them be present in this.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah, leadership. I would just say one word, leadership.
Favorite Cleveland restaurant?
Oh, being Italian, I'm a little partial to a restaurant called Il Venetian, which is in the Key Center building there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Favorite Cleveland coffee shop?
As I'm right down the street here in Playhouse Square, and they closed the Starbucks.
I know,
on the corner
that was
there,
really tough.
Which was my daily routine. Somewhere around Brattonall, I would say, "Hey Siri, order my Starbucks." But now inside the Playhouse Square, there's a coffee shop called the Brasserie, I think. A new one, yeah.
I haven't been.
Yeah.
Do they have pretty regular hours?
In the morning, and Corbo's is also says curvy. So there's coffee on the path.
Yeah, good. John, thank you for an amazing conversation. Where can people find out more about Paguar Informatics, listen to AI After 50, and connect with you directly?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, AI After 50, just search AI After 50 on your favorite podcast platform, and paguar.com, Paguar.com.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ashtyn. Pleasure.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Now it's time to start making moves. Head to vividfront.com/marketing moves for exclusive marketing materials. Every episode, we add more of our greatest insider secrets to help you move towards success. See you next time.